David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have for you a review of a pen from a company I've featured previously on this channel, and that company would be Stex. The pen I have for you today is one of their latest releases called the Fidget Rosewood. What I am going to do today is go over the parts and features of this pen, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. If you don't recall, Stex is based out of India in a town on the western coast called Gujarat. The company is run by the husband and wife team of Namdish and Jenga Shah. I recently saw both of them somewhat recently at the DC show where they provided this pen for review. That's one of the nice things about attending pen shows is meeting people face to face you've corresponded with online. The name Stex is a portmanteau of the parent company of the brand, which is called Star Exium. The pen arrives in this box. It slides off, and then the top lifts off, and inside we have a few things. There is a polishing cloth. There is some warranty information, as well as some additional marketing information. Something nice, in my previous review of a Stex pen, I was rather critical of the company's marketing. They had multiple references to what I would describe as kind of pseudo-medicine in regard to claims about the health benefits of copper. I'm pleased to say that those references have been removed. In speaking with Namdish in DC, he mentioned that after my review, they decided to omit those references from their marketing, which is nice to see a company listening to some feedback and make some changes. And then we have the pen. This is the Stex Fidget Rosewood. It's a pretty large pen, and as the name would imply, it is made from rosewood and has copper hardware. The rosewood used on this pen is nice. I do like the visual element of the nooks and crannies in this material, which are evident throughout. It gives an additional tactile feeling other than just simply the wood. I do find the exterior to be smooth, even though it does look a little bit rough in these pictures, but it doesn't feel that way. Let's take a look at the parts and features of this pen. The top of the cap has a copper finial inlaid with an additional piece of rosewood. Now, I'm not sure why it has this circular patterning. That's not going to be the grain of the wood. Maybe it was done that way to simulate wood grain, or maybe it's just a byproduct of the cutting of the wood. But either way, I think personally I would have just preferred a smooth surface as opposed to the rings. The cap is straight. This is a clipless pen. There is no clip or roll stop. At the end of the cap, there is a copper band, which is actually part of the barrel. And on that band, it has the company name of Stex on one side, and on the other side, it has the stylized S, which is the company logo. I find the transition from the cap through this band and onto the barrel is smooth. Now, you can tell here that there is some variance between the wood used on the cap and on the barrel. This is the wood on the barrel, which has some circular markings on it. I don't believe that's the natural wood. I think those lines are a byproduct of manufacturing. Either the barrel wasn't sanded well or the exterior treatment of the wood wasn't smoothly applied. In this picture, you can really see the difference between the wood on the cap and the barrel. I'd just like to see more of a consistency between the looks of the cap and barrel, as well as some additional sanding or polishing on the wood to eliminate those unsightly rings. Now, I will admit that when looking at this pen with my naked eye, I really don't notice those rings that much, but as you saw, they really stand out a great deal when taking some closer up pictures. The barrel is straight, and on the end of the barrel are some posting threads. And on the very end of those threads, it is inlaid with another piece of rosewood, again with those circular marks. The cap twists off with 2 full rotations, and underneath we have a stainless steel number 6 Schmidt nib. Now, Schmidt actually uses different terminology for those nib sizes, and this one here is a little bit less wide than a Jovo or Bach number 6, but without going into a long explanation about Schmidt's nibs numbering system, this is essentially a number 6. This nib is only offered in medium. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section is interesting. It is rather lengthy. It's copper and angles up slightly until you get to a very large step up to the remainder of the barrel. Now there's a few things going on here. The engraved rings on this metal section do a good job of helping you maintain your grip. I don't find it to be slick at all. However, even though this is a very long section, I find the rather large step up still gets in my way. I've mentioned this several times, but I tend to grip my sections close to the end of the section, and my grip still collides with the back end here. If you grip your sections a bit further back, then it might be more of an issue for you. The other issue I have with this section actually has to do with the name of this pen. It is called the Fidget Rosewood. You have seen the rosewood, and the band here at the end of the section is the fidget aspect of this pen. There's a number of issues I experienced with the fidget aspect of the pen. This ring spins around, so you can like flick it around with your thumb, or if you hold on to it with your other hand, you can spin the entire pen around. This isn't necessarily advisable for a couple of reasons. First of all, in order to play around with this fidget aspect of the pen, the cap needs to be removed. When the pen is capped, it tightens down on the ring and you're unable to spin it. If you want to, you can crack the cap slightly, then you can play around with it. But if you remove the cap, I have a couple of concerns. You're now exposing the nib to the open air, and doing so for a prolonged period of time, you're going to maybe cause the nib to dry out. And then plus, if you're holding the ring and spinning it, you're actively spinning the nib around, and there could be a risk of ink shooting out as well. However, the thing which annoys me the most is that the ring here on the end is a bit loose, so it has a bit of a play. So when you're writing with this pen and your grip hits up against that large step up, then it rattles a bit. Let me stop talking and you can kind of hear it. So when you're using the pen, you hear that noise a lot, and I just find it to be annoying. Maybe the fidget aspect would have been better suited as a band on the cap so that you could play with it in your offhand while you're using the pen in the other. This is a very large pen. It is plenty long enough to use unposted. Now, the cap does post, and I don't find the cap to be overly heavy, and so I don't feel that posting it backweights the pen or throws off the balance, but with this already oversized pen, I feel posting adds an inordinate amount of length to the pen, and it just makes it a little bit unwieldy. My suggestion would be maybe not to have a twist to post and just having a copper with a rosewood insert on the end of the barrel as opposed to the threads. And then maybe transfer the fidget aspect to the cap. This is a cartridge converter pen. It accepts standard international cartridges and a Schmidt converter is provided. With the metal in this section and barrel, eyedropping would not be advisable. The Stex Fidget Rosewood is available on the Stex Company website. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. And the price for this pen is $180, which isn't terrible. I have some overall issues with the design and the materials, like I mentioned, but it is well put together. And in the hand, it does feel like a solid pen, and as you'll see in the writing sample, it performs very nicely. I'll go ahead and put a link to where you can find this on the Stex Company website in the notes below. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and that writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Stex Fidget Rosewood. In regard to the other Stex pen I reviewed, it is this one here in copper, which was called the DiMagno. And then in regard to some other pens, we have this Lamy Safari. And then the last four pens I have are some wood pens. This one here is a Conklin All-American, and this one was in walnut. And the last three pens are from an artisan who does some fantastic work with wood. That would be Ryan Krusak. And we have three of his pens here. This is the Legend 15. No, I'm sorry. This is the Legend 14. And this is in Honduras Rosewood. And then we have the Legend 15, and this one is in Cocobolo. And then finally we have, this is a Legend 16, and this is with the Ebony Heartwood Sapwood, which I just love getting the kind of black and white version of that pen. In regard to uncapped comparisons, this is what it looks like with the Safari and the Conklin All-American, and then the Crusac Legend 14. Okay, here we go with the writing sample for the Stex. And this is the Fidget Rosewood. This is a medium stainless steel nib. And the ink I'm using is one of my favorites, which is Diamine Ancient Copper. This is what the ink looks like. It's just a really nice copper with some decent shading to it. This is what it looks like with Private Reserve's Copper Burst, which is similar in color, but a little bit more shading. And then here it is with an ink I recently reviewed, which is a little bit more on the browner side of brown as opposed to the redder side of brown, which was Poppy Plume's Rebirth. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. You might hear, but when I'm writing, you can kind of hear that rattle when I'm writing. And it just, I just really don't like that. It makes me feel like something is not quite put together or not quite screwed down. But this nib is very pleasant to use. It's decently wet, and that you can get a bit of line variation out of there. In regard to wetness, I find that it is fairly wet for a medium nib. And in regard to reverse writing, it is a little bit scratchy. But then in regard to some fast writing, the feed keeps up just fine. So there we have the Stex Fidget Rosewood. There's a few things about it which I think can be improved. Maybe you can get a closer look at that material there on the cap as well as the barrel. You can just see that there's some variance between the two and the issues I had with the fidget aspect of it. But overall, it does feel very nice in the hand, and it is well built and manufactured. And kind of as far as the intention of the design, it's put well together. And then actually, it's pleasant to write with as well. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.